Let's go ahead and get started with this Joe Biden story. I got to get into this. I warned people not to get excited. So here we go. Biden taking hard look at student loan forgiveness. Oh, they crack me up. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. President Joe Biden said Thursday that he's taking a hard look at canceling additional federal student loan debt and will reach a decision within a month. He's taking a hard look, you guys. I don't know what else he has to look at, but it is what it is at this point. I'm considering dealing with some debt reduction, Biden told reporters in the Roosevelt Room at the White House. The comments came days after Biden had a private meeting with Democratic lawmakers who pressed him on the issue. One of the lawmakers, Representative Tony Cardenas, Democrat from California, said afterwards that Biden disclosed he's exploring the possibility. However, Biden signaled in his Thursday remarks that he wouldn't go as far as some activists want, saying $50,000 in debt forgiveness was not under consideration. He did not give a number for what he is considering. So I tried to warn people about this. I saw people were getting excited on social media. They're like, oh my God, Joe Biden says he might cancel, some student loan. He's going to do it. He's going to do it. And I'm like, don't believe it until you see it. Nothing has happened. You have to remember, we are now in midterms. So people, a lot of these politicians, they're going to come to you with all kinds of promises just so you can vote for them again. Right now, the Democratic Party is fearful of losing the House. So that's a big part of this. They also might lose the Senate as well. And of course, in 2024, the White House. If they really cared this much about student loan debt and they were serious about trying to cancel it, then they would have been talking about this last year. They would have made moves for this last year. They waited until it's midterms, and now they're going to make promises to people just so you can vote for them again. And Joe Biden is already wavering on the amount. What happened to Joe Biden saying that he was going to forgive student loan debt for students that went to HBCUs? That's gone. Then at one point, he said up to $10,000. My student loans haven't changed, so I haven't seen that either. And now he's saying, well, $50,000 was never on the table. Now, that was brought up by Elizabeth Warren. She was really pushing for that. And I told you guys before, I think if they're going to cancel it, they need to cancel all of it. $10,000 isn't even going to cancel interest for some people. So he's not serious about it. And I'm going to show you why he's not serious about it in just a second. But let me go back into the article. I'm in the process of taking a hard look at whether or not there will be additional debt forgiveness, he said. And I'll have an answer on that in the next couple of weeks. During his campaign, Biden said he wanted to immediately cancel at least $10,000 in student debt per person. So far, he's repeatedly extended a pause on requiring borrowers to repay their loans, a moratorium that was put in place under then President Donald Trump nearing the beginning of the pandemic. So I'm glad that they pointed this out, and not to cheer on Donald Trump, but I'm glad that they did mention this was originally started under Trump, not under Joe Biden. Although activists have been encouraged by their increasing traction on this issue, some said they were concerned that Biden wouldn't go far enough. President Biden, we agree that we shouldn't cancel $50,000 in student loan debt. We should cancel all of it. Now, that's coming from Wisdom Cole. He's the national director of the NAACP Youth and College Division. $50,000 was just the bottom line. Oh, they're getting brutal here. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Thursday that Biden was still considering whether to tie debt relief to borrowers' income levels, an idea he's floated in the past. She said it's certainly something he would be looking at. Let's talk about that for just a second. See, he's thinking about means testing it. And you guys know how I feel about means testing. If you're going to do it for everyone. Don't just do it based on income. This is exactly what they did for the stimulus payments. And I didn't agree with that either. I said, just give it to everybody because your income doesn't necessarily determine how much you can pay back. Let me give you an example. Let's say you make $100,000 a year. Sounds good, right? Depends on where you live. $100,000 a year here in Boston, that's okay. You're not rich. In some places, like if you live down south, $100,000, that's a big deal in South Carolina, right? That's not so much a big deal here in Boston. Boston is expensive. So you can make $100,000 a month, but if your rent is $2,500 a month, even if you have roommates, you still have that. Then you still have to pay for other expenses if you have a car insurance, all of those, all of that jazz that you have to deal with. But the problem that a lot of us face here is that most of our income goes to our rent or to our mortgage. That's where the bulk of our money goes. I know I'm on a budget, so I see where my money goes. So there's a lot of things that need to change. Number one, people need to be paid a living wage. Yes. But at the same time, we have to do something about rent. At one point in time, Boston had rent control. We don't have that anymore. I think they stopped it in the 90s. We also don't have rent stability. And that means that the landlords can increase the rent as much as they want with no penalty. There's no repercussion. So even if they gave everyone a living wage, even if he canceled student loan debt based on income, for those of us that live in these cities like Boston, Los Angeles, New York, we're not really going to benefit that much from that because the cost of living is so expensive. The landlords are not stupid. What they'll do, they'll increase the rent, which they're still doing, by the way. Even during a pandemic, landlords are increasing the rent. They'll find a way to get the money from you. So I don't agree with means testing it. I think you should just do it for everyone. I want to go back to the example of the stimulus checks again, because there's something I noticed about that. The stimulus checks, it was based on your income from the year before. If you were one of the people that had your hours cut, or you had shifts cut because of the pandemic, or you lost your job for whatever reason and say you did not qualify for unemployment, well, the income that you made the year before was no longer your current income. Do you see what I mean? This is why I didn't want them to means test it. Just give it to everyone. Just give it to everybody. Just do the damn thing. Let's go back in here. So this is back to Jen Psaki. She rejected criticism from Senator Mitt Romney from Utah and others that debt relief amounts to a political giveaway. Biden's goal, Psaki said, is to continue to provide relief to people who need it most to help people get some extra breathing room. Uh, but again, they don't know everyone's living situation. They don't know your income situation. Like just they're just looking at numbers on a paper. And they're probably going to look at the amount before taxes. They like to do things like that. They don't know your actual living situation. So, how do you know who needs it most if you're just looking at their income? I just think this is a ridiculous idea. I don't think Joe Biden's going to do this at all. He's already starting to backtrack. I want to show you something from our friend Pat the Burner. He says it so well. While Dems control the House and the Senate, considering eliminating a majority of student loan debt. Listen to this. Yesterday, whoa, not 50K. Today, muling 10K. Tomorrow, if Dems control the House and the Senate after midterms, I'll go big. After losing the House in midterms, we tried. And he's right. He's exactly right. I don't know if you guys follow Pat the Burner on Twitter, but you should definitely check him out. I do follow him, but this is definitely not my Twitter account. No, it's not. I just realized that. That's Eric's, I think. So definitely check him out because he has some great things to say. But again, it's just Biden mules for giving $10,000 in student loans per borrower. He's just thinking about it. He's thinking about 10,000. Let me show you why he's not serious about it. Now, I've talked before on this show about the donors, where a lot of the money comes from for some of these politicians that are in office. And when we talk about student loans, there is no better predatory student loan lending company than Sallie Mae. I could do a whole show about Sallie Mae, but I want to show you why they don't really want to do this. So this is Open Secrets, and you can look this up on your own, by the way. Open Secrets, public information. This is the PAC profile for Sallie Mae. Now, pay close attention here. Let's go down. Now, this is how much Sallie Mae has donated per party by election cycle. Obviously, blue is Democrat, red is Republican. So I want to start with 2016. If you notice, in 2016, Sallie Mae was actually giving more money to Republicans, 32.1K, than to Democrats, 18.1K. But as we go through the election cycles, you will see that this changes. In 2018, you can see Democrats are receiving more money from Sallie Mae, and so are Republicans. Let's go over to 2020. This is where the big change happens. In 2020, all of a sudden, Democrats are taking more money from Sallie Mae. These are your elected officials in DC, ladies and gentlemen. They are taking more from Sallie Mae than Republicans are now. You see the change? And then we'll go over to 2022. And the reason why it drops so low is because student loan payments have been put on hold. So obviously, Sallie Mae is not giving as much money right now. So let's look at this a little bit closer. I want to go to candidate recipients. There's a couple of people on here I want to point out to you because I think you'll start to understand why they have the talking points they have. And this is why I always tell you, make sure you follow the money. So when it comes to campaign contributions to federal candidates, for election cycle 2020, Sallie Mae donated $36,000 to Democrats, $34,500 to Republicans. Let's go further down. Let's look at the candidates that they donated to. I want to point out, obviously there's Republicans on here, but I want to point out the Democrats because I think you should know who's taking money from these student loan companies. We have Lisa Blunt Rochester. She's from Delaware. Henry Cuellar, and by the way, this does not surprise me. Henry Cuellar, he's running against Jessica Cisneros in Texas again. He takes a lot of corporate money. He's actually more of a conservative Democrat. That's what he calls himself. So he's on here as well. You have Brian McAdams from Utah. You also have Jim Cooper from Tennessee. Let's go to the second page. And then you'll have Jennifer Wexton from Virginia. But let's change election cycles and let's go back to 2018. This is what's cool about Open Secrets. You can just kind of snoop around here looking at some numbers. Now, again, in 2018, Sallie Mae was donating more to Republican politicians than Democrat politicians. But I want to point out some people that are on this list that you might be surprised by. Make sure I got everybody. In 2016, you have Kirsten Sinema. That does not surprise me. But the person I wanted to point to that was on this list, I thought he was on this one. Here we go. Chris Coons from Delaware. Top recipient in the Senate for donor money from Sallie Mae. Now, why is this important? And it's not just Chris Coons. As you can see again, Kirsten Sinema's on here as well. Chris Coons. Chris Coons was one of the Democrats in the Senate that voted against $15 minimum wage. So was Kirsten Sinema. Just something I think we need to point out. This is why I tell people to pay very close attention to where the money is coming from. So the reason why I wanted to show you this is because if at any point there is a bill or there is a piece of legislation that comes through and let's say passes the House for canceling student loan debt, Chris Coons and Kirsten Sinema and all the other Democrats on that list are probably going to vote against it. Now, I don't know if legislation is going to come through the House, if it's going to pass. Don't know if that's going to happen, but if it does, those people that I just showed you are probably going to vote against it. That's why it's important for people to see this. Lawrence Johnson is right. You got to follow the money. Got to follow the money. Now, let's go back in because there's something else I wanted to show you as well. Tim Kaine. Does everybody remember Tim Kaine? Wasn't this Hillary Clinton's running mate? He takes money from Sallie Mae. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is a big part of the problem. You have to know where the money is coming from. And you can look up anyone here. You can look up anyone. Let me see if I can go to Joe Biden. 2020. I don't care if he was the winner. Here we go. Let's go to contributors. So I want to show you who donates to Joe Biden. This one is very concerning. Bloomberg. You guys see how much money Bloomberg LP donated to Joe Biden? Bloomberg. Mike Bloomberg has a media company. People don't see this as a conflict of interest. Bloomberg, let's go down. I'm going to pick out the ones that I know may be an issue. It seems like the University of California has money to donate to Joe Biden, but they don't have money to give their students more scholarships. Yes, I said it. Very interesting. Here's another one, Alphabet Inc. Now, they are also the same company that donates to Ro Khanna. Alphabet Inc. includes Google. So Google is a part of Alphabet Inc. Interesting, huh? Again, if you don't do your research, and most people, they won't dig further than this, they'll just see Alphabet Inc. and just say, okay, some company, Alphabet Inc. You have to actually research those companies. Take that company, put it in Google, DuckDuckGo, and research it and find out what exactly those companies are. That's important for people to know. I think I have a super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Rodrigo. Kyle K losing subs and Sabby growing, well-deserved. Oh, thank you, Rodrigo. Yeah, I'm not even going to get into that discussion. I've talked about that before. Thanks for the super chat, Andrew. Liberals act like Biden is a fire-breathing populist when he gives people $2 and a cheeseburger with no cheese. What we need is health care. I second that. Thanks for the super chat as well, Andrew. I was excited when my hourly wage went from $12 an hour to $15 an hour. And then gas prices went to $4.50 per gallon. This is why people can't get ahead. Because if they give you an increase in one area, then they just raise the costs. They raise the prices on other things that you're already paying for. For example, you get a raise at work. That's great. We usually get about a 2.8% raise sometimes a little bit more if you're lucky. But health insurance premiums increase too. So did you really get a raise? Gas prices went up, everything else goes up. So you're not really getting an increase like you think. Steve said Sally is a billionaires. Comrade Cam, this is why they're against debt cancellation and free college. That's part of the reason. And the other reason is the military industrial complex. One of the reasons why they don't want to cancel student loan debt, they don't want to give us free college, is because those are two incentives to joining the military. Those are two incentives to joining the military: free college, canceling student loan debt. That's how it works. So if they were to give that away, that takes away a benefit of being a part of the military. It's important that people know that and that people understand.